Protesters blocked traffic for a third straight day in downtown Bangkok, defying an emergency decree banning demonstrations. Protesters are calling for the removal of the prime minister who took power during a coup in 2014. Water cannons were later used on the protesters. The situation escalating further today when police raided the offices of the Progressive Party. 8 million confirmed cases, the U.S. reaching a new milestone as the latest numbers show more than half the country going in the wrong direction. Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Colorado all setting one-day case records. Dr. Anthony Fauci's warning about indoor gatherings. Battleground blitz after last night's town hall split screen. President Trump in Florida trying to win over seniors. Joe Biden also on the campaign trail. And what's next for the final debate? The horrific terror attack in a Paris suburb, a teacher's throat slashed, apparently targeted by a student's parent. What the assailant was reportedly yelling before being shot by police. New developments in the domestic terror plot to kidnap the Michigan governor, the group's alleged ringleader, and the new allegations about how they cased the governor's home. Seeking preventative care during a pandemic. During this Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're along for the emotional roller coaster for several women with the BRCA gene. And a closer look at testing for the coronavirus in the U.S., where things stand right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Let's start off tonight with two numbers. 18 days until Election Day and 8 million cases of coronavirus in America. Just to help put that number in perspective, roughly 1 in 40 Americans has now tested positive for COVID-19. Chances are you know at least one of them. And tonight, as the weather turns colder, fears of yet a third wave are now growing. The virus has returned to the USS Theodore Roosevelt. 2 sailors joined the more than 65,000 Americans who tested positive today alone. And Dr. Anthony Fauci says more than 30 states are going in the wrong direction. Our Alex Perez leads us off from Chicago, where hospitals are once again struggling with the surge.
Tonight, another grim milestone. More than 8 million Americans infected with the virus. Cases now climbing in nearly every corner of this country.
Seeing the heat map, how it lights up with test positivity that is in more than 30 plus states is going in the wrong direction.
39 states with rising hospitalizations, 13 hitting records just this week. And now the number of deaths also climbing as more hospitals get overwhelmed.
All of our frontline providers who are doing an amazing job taking care of our patients. As many know, there's been a huge surge in cases in Utah. Our hospitals are getting full.
The first COVID patients arriving at the field hospital set up outside Milwaukee. After spending 7 days in the ICU, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie telling GMA the virus hit him like a freight train.
All of a sudden, I got fever and chills and body aches, and I was just racked with pain and exhaustion, and it all happened very, very quickly. Within 24 hours, I went from feeling absolutely fine to being in the intensive care unit.
Christie tested positive after not wearing a mask during the president's debate preps and that super spreader event at the White House. He now says he's learned a lesson.
I let my guard down, and it was wrong. It was just a big mistake. Leaders all across the politics, sports, the media should be saying to people, put your masks on and be safe until we get a vaccine that can help to protect us completely.
In the race for a vaccine, Pfizer today saying if all goes well, they could have a vaccine ready to send for emergency authorization soon after the 3rd week of November. A vaccine can't come soon enough. In Florida, unimaginable loss for the family of Jerry Jones, the 51-year-old veteran and EMS first responder who died of the virus just a day after his 41-year-old sister also lost her life to COVID.
I had to call Jerry's mom and tell her that her child didn't make it after the day before she had gotten the phone call about her daughter not making it. 2 blows, 2 devastating blows. Those were their only children.
Losing both children to coronavirus, just so hard to fathom. Alex Perez joins us now from Chicago, Illinois, one of the many places seeing a surge in cases right now.
Yeah, Lindsay, some really alarming numbers here in Chicago, the state, I should say, Illinois, breaking its own record of new cases, a record that was set just yesterday. Across the country, we're seeing 63,000 new cases of the virus reported in just one day. We have not seen numbers like that since July. Cities like Denver, Minneapolis, here in Chicago, St. Louis, cities across the country really bracing for this surge. Doctors are saying we clearly are in the middle of a third surge right now. Lindsay?
Right, as Fauci says, we are going in the wrong direction. Alex Perez, thank you so much. And now to the race for the White House. With just 18 days to go until the final votes are cast on Election Day, President Trump and former Vice President Biden both on the campaign trail today with multiple events after those dueling town halls last night. President Trump with another combative performance and refusing to denounce the fringe conspiracy group QAnon that supports him. Joe Biden with a policy-focused forum here on ABC last night and staying overtime to keep answering questions from those town hall voters. For the latest on the race, here's Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl.
Donald Trump is in Florida today, pleading for support from seniors, a group he won easily 4 years ago, but is struggling with this year, in part because of his handling of COVID-19. Today, he made them this promise.
Seniors will be the first in line for the vaccine. The light at the end of the tunnel is near. We are rounding the turn.
Campaigning in Michigan today, Joe Biden shot back, saying the president is lying about a pandemic that by any measure is taking a turn for the worse.
Turn the corner. My Lord. It's not disappearing. In fact, it's on the rise again. It's getting worse as predicted.
During last night's dueling town halls, the president insisted he's long known the dangers of COVID-19, but he didn't want people to panic.
I don't want to go out and say everybody's going to die.
Today, Biden said the one who panicked was Trump.
And the reason he lied again to the American people? Well, he said he didn't want to panic the American people. Americans don't panic. Donald Trump panicked.
In the first debate, President Trump declined to denounce white supremacists. In last night's town hall, he praised the fringe conspiracists of QAnon, who law enforcement warns pose a potential terror threat. And the moderator, Savannah Guthrie, challenged him to explain why he recently retweeted a wild conspiracy that Joe Biden faked the death of Osama bin Laden.
That was a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves. I don't take a position.
You're not like someone's crazy uncle who can just retweet whatever.
One of the Navy SEALs who took part in the mission, a Trump supporter, condemned the retweet.
The thing is, he can go over to the CIA anytime where there's a file cabinet with a picture of bin Laden's head and my hands are in the picture.
Today, the president sent clear signals he wasn't happy with last night's forum.
Another evening in paradise, I call it.
But for a president who obsesses about ratings, what really had to hurt was this. Significantly more people watched the Biden town hall than watched his. On ABC, Biden again dodged the question about whether he supports expanding the number of justices on the Supreme Court.
No matter what answer I gave you, if I say it, that's the headline tomorrow. It won't be about what's going on now, the improper way they're proceeding.
But don't voters have a right to know where you stand?
They do have a right to know where they stand. They'll have a right to know where I stand before they vote.
So you'll come out with a clear position before Election Day?
Yes, depending on how they handle this.
In a sign of the Trump campaign's troubles, Republicans are starting to criticize him. In a call with his constituents, Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse said he is worried that Trump will lose and bring down the Republican Senate, too.
The United States now regularly sells out our allies under his leadership. The way he treats women and spends like a drunken sailor, the way he mocks evangelicals behind closed doors. His family has treated the presidency like a business opportunity. He's flirted with white supremacists.
And this week, two of the most popular Republican governors in the country, Charlie Baker of Massachusetts and Larry Hogan of Maryland, announced they would not be voting for Trump.
More Republicans distancing themselves from the president. Jonathan Karl joins us now. John, just a surreal split screen last night. Each candidate showing very different approaches. What struck you most?
Well, one thing was just how normal, and I mean normal in a pre-Donald Trump sense, the Joe Biden town hall was. This was a candidate for president talking about policies, talking about bills that are being talked about in Congress, directly addressing questions raised by citizens, and doing it without much flair or flash or controversy, really rather straightforward. And Donald Trump, of course, was another very contentious an evening, going right at it with the moderator, with Savannah Guthrie, and classic Donald Trump. But Biden was like a flashback to pre-Trump politics.
Yeah, it was politics as usual at the Biden town hall.
Yeah.
And we saw Ben Sasse there criticizing the president's behavior, but it seems like his bigger concern is the president taking down the Republican Senate with him if he loses.
And I am hearing that from Republicans privately as well, quite a few of them. It's been increasing in recent weeks. Republicans concerned that Donald Trump is going to lose, likely to lose the presidency, may well bring down the Republican Senate, and also could cause the Republicans to lose further seats in the House. And you're starting to see that seep out publicly. A lot of those thoughts, for some time were only expressed privately, but now, as you saw with Ben Sasse, although it should be said that was a conference call with constituents that he didn't intend to go out, but it was clearly, in making those comments, he knew they could get out there publicly.
Jonathan Karl from the nation's capital. Thanks so much, John.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And now to the social media crackdown on conspiracy groups in the run-up to Election Day. YouTube has announced it is removing videos and tightening restrictions on conspiracy theories like QAnon, but the company admits managing misinformation is a challenge. Our Whit Johnson has more.
Hours before that town hall in which President Trump refused to denounce the conspiracy group QAnon.
I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard.
YouTube launched a new crackdown on the group, whose followers are sometimes visible at pro-Trump rallies, donning the letter Q on T-shirts and signs.
Q's plan save the world.
The platform, owned by the same parent company as Google, saying in a statement, "We are taking another step in our efforts to curb hate and harassment by removing more conspiracy theory content used to justify real-world violence. Additionally, we've removed tens of thousands of QAnon videos and terminated hundreds of channels under our existing policies."
I am 100% behind Q.
The movement is based on the unfounded conspiracy theory that a group of Satan-worshiping, child sex trafficking, A-list celebrities and politicians are trying to secretly overthrow President Trump. Videos espousing the conspiracy have been a key part of spreading its beliefs.
Our thanks to Whit. And YouTube says it will begin enforcing these new restrictions immediately, but critics argue that after years of letting the conspiracy theory spread, the damage has already been done. And now to the latest on the alleged domestic terror plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. A judge today found sufficient evidence to move ahead with the trial of 5 charged with federal crimes. 14 suspects are now facing charges, 7 of them alleged members of an extremist militia group. And prosecutors today presented new evidence to make their case that their alleged plot was all too real. Here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, in just-released images from federal authorities, suspects accused of allegedly planning the kidnapping of Michigan's governor seen taking surveillance footage of her vacation home, mapping out their alleged plan after a surveillance trip. And in this video, one of the suspects is showing off his cache of weapons. All this as the FBI and prosecutors have argued in court this week that the suspects should not be released pending trial because they're too dangerous. ABC affiliate WXYZ obtaining this police dashcam video showing suspect Brandon Caserta pulled over on September 19th during a routine traffic stop. But shortly afterwards, the FBI says, Caserta allegedly sent texts to the group saying he wished to kill the officers, even discussing hunting them down during their night shift. In this video posted on social media, Caserta endorsing violence against the government.
I'm an anarchist. I'm about to drop a bomb. Defensive force is legitimate.
But defense attorneys today claiming it was all, quote, big chalk.
We're talking about guys who want to run around in the woods with guns and say bad things about the government.
Lindsay, Michigan is banning the open carry of guns at Election Day polling places. Michigan's Secretary of State said she wants citizens to cast their votes, quote, without the fear of threats or intimidation. This plot clearly has many in that state on edge. Lindsay?
Pierre, thanks to you. And there's been a reversal in the Trump administration's initial decision to deny what could be tens of millions in federal aid to the state of California during its worst fire season on record. The White House had said that California's submission was, quote, not supported by the relevant data that states must provide for approval. California Governor Gavin Newsom then announced plans to appeal. And now word the Trump administration will not deny the state federal aid. More than 4 million acres in California have burned this season. 4 fires this year on the list of the top 20 most destructive fires in state history. And California firefighters have gained some success with the Bruder fire after several days of record heat, but the red flag warnings, they continue in the West. Meanwhile, here in the East, winter is on its way. 14 states from Alabama to New York are now under frost and freeze alerts heading into the night. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all for us. Rob?
Good evening, Lindsay. Ahead of that cold air is some rain that we're seeing here across the Northeast. Rain they could desperately use across the West, especially in California, where those fires continue to burn and where red flag warnings remain up tonight because of gusty winds and those dry conditions. Temperatures, again, we're at record levels in the valleys outside of Los Angeles. They will cool a little bit over the next few days, but remain well above normal through the end of next week with no rain in sight. So it's going to be a difficult go for another week, it looks like. All right, here comes the rain, and here it goes along the front of I-95, New York to where I stand here in Norwalk, Connecticut, the Sound Shore, and Hartford, Rhode Island. Boston, you'll get the rain as well. Maybe some snow mixing in across northern New England, so as that cold air tries to sneak in behind it, and then it comes in and pours in with a vengeance. Temperatures are going to feel like they're in the 30s in Chicago and Indianapolis and Pittsburgh tomorrow morning, but potentially in the 30s as well as far south as Nashville, Tennessee. So certainly a taste of winter here as we get into the meat of fall. Rainfall here, we could use it in the Northeast, especially in New England, but they certainly would love to have it in California as well, but that's not the way it works. Looks like they're going to stay dry for at least a week there. The struggle continues with those wildfires.
Struggle
Lindsay?
continues indeed. Okay, Rob, thanks so much. And when we come back, the history teacher beheaded right in the middle of a street in France, and the deeply emotional decision seeking preventative care during a pandemic. We speak with several women with a rare gene that predisposes them to breast cancer about their tough choices. But up next, our in-depth look at the state of the nation's testing and surveillance effort in the fight against COVID. Where do things stand, and could there eventually be an effective rapid test that doesn't require a lab?
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin. Just give it to me straight. Straightforward news. Straight to the heart of the story. ABC News. Straightforward.
What is necessary for Chicago is a vision, actual solutions for the issues we face.
Oh boy.
All people, all voices.
One Chicago, united for all.
Who was John Lennon?
Magical,
brilliant, daring.
John was my favorite Beatle.
Now, new interviews with those who were right there with John Lennon and his last interview, all on that day.
Wow, there's life, there's hope.
The 2020 event, John Lennon, tonight on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
We move up to the vehicle. He detonates the bomb.
The heroes who stopped the killer, who held the city of Austin hostage for 19 days.
It's a tripwire.
All hands on deck. The clues, the Home Depot video, that truck, and the agent who connected the dots.
It was exactly the vehicle that we were looking for.
Inside the investigation,
Vans made contact.
the takedown of the bomber. now streaming on Hulu.
A Seattle police officer is recovering tonight after a man charged at him with a burning piece of lumber and then threw it inside his cruiser. The incident occurred in downtown Seattle. The officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect moments earlier was allegedly stomping through a homeless camp, shouting racial slurs. The suspect was not struck when the officer fired his weapon, but was taken into custody a short time later, and it's unclear what charges he faces. Switching gears now as the coronavirus surges across the country. Tonight, we have an exclusive look at the front lines of the nation's testing and surveillance effort. Where does our testing capacity stand? Who needs to get tested even once we have a vaccine? And could we soon all be able to test ourselves for COVID quickly and affordably at home? Here's ABC's Devin Dwyer.
As COVID cases surge, it's being fought swab by swab, millions swirling their cheeks, tickling their throats, and plunging those white tips into their noses. After a slow start, the nation's COVID testing operation has been humming, the samples pouring into labs like this one run by testing startup Curative, where ABC News got an exclusive look at the operation, processing nearly 10% of the nation's daily tests.
You've got thousands and thousands of tests a day coming through here.
Yeah. And we have extra capacity as well. So this is all designed to have scale-up capacity to 100,000 samples per day.
The Trump administration says more than 120 million COVID tests will be available nationwide in October, but far fewer Americans are actually being tested, only around 1 million per day, less than 30 million per month.
I think people are confused. They don't know what to do, whether to get a test. I think there was messaging of, well, don't get tested unless you really need it because you're taking a test from someone else. The country now has more testing capacity.
Adding to confusion, changes to CDC guidelines on testing and President Trump's comment over the summer that he wanted testing rolled back.
So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Do you want people to go get tested?
We definitely want people to be tested.
Admiral Brett Giroir is the Trump administration's COVID testing czar.
If you're symptomatic, you need to get tested. If you've been in close contact with a person known to have the disease, you should get tested. We need to have many individuals tested on a routine basis who are asymptomatic with no known exposure. We can call that surveillance testing.
About 40% of people infected with COVID-19 don't have symptoms, according to CDC. Flagging many more of those cases through testing could be a game changer.
If we give everyone the knowledge of their own status, that they are positive, we can get enough people to then choose not to go to work that day, not to go to school that day, but to stay home.
Dr. Michael Minna of Harvard University wants a COVID test to be as routine as brushing your teeth. Inexpensive paper strip tests like these, still under development, don't require a lab and would give results in a matter of minutes instead of days.
I think that we can have these tests, have them be available for very private use, if that's what it takes, because we know that a lot of people don't want to participate in these bigger systems for various reasons.
Companies designing at-home tests tell ABC News they're able to manufacture millions of tests a day and could have them widely available immediately.
We should probably be doing something like 20 million tests per day if we want to use these tests as a tool to stop transmission.
If we were to reach 20 million tests a day, as you've been surmising, how soon would that help us get the virus under control?
Within about a month, I think, if you could actually sort of snap your fingers and make a program like this start tomorrow.
What's your sense of how quickly we could get these sorts of tests distributed?
I think the federal government has to take the reins and do it.
The federal government isn't sold on the idea. The FDA has concerns about accuracy and sensitivity. There's also concern the test's higher rate of false negatives could breed a false sense of security.
Let me just assure you that if there were an at-home test that would be cheap and easy to do, that had performance anywhere close to something that would be acceptable, it would be authorized. We all want that. We are getting to the point that there might be some candidates.
Do you think we'll get there?
I think we'll get there. We're not there yet. They do not need to meet the standard of a clinical test because we understand their niche. But number one, they have to have a degree of validity and accuracy.
In August, the FDA authorized the first rapid COVID test that doesn't require a lab.
And so this is what it looks like.
all right? And if you saw 2 red lines, you'd indicate a positive test result.
The $5 card-shaped tests made by Abbott, which require a medical professional to supervise, give results in 15 minutes. The government purchased 150 million of them last month, now shipping them to critical hotspots, nursing homes, and HBCUs, like the University of District of Columbia, which receives 7,000.
I think these rapid test kits are going to be very, very important and a good tool for us as we start to think about bringing more and more people back onto campus.
A majority of Americans believe widespread testing is the key to a return to normal activities. 5 months ago, nearly 60% said they were worried about the lack of available COVID tests. Now it's just 25%. We saw for ourselves how easy walk-up testing can be, now increasingly available at health centers and pharmacies without a doctor's order and often at low or no cost.
The sample collection in the field is the bottleneck right now, not the lab processes themselves.
That process, the gold standard PCR test, is labor-intensive and time-consuming, but highly accurate.
This is 300 Americans right here who have swabbed themselves. Their samples are in these vials.
Exactly.
But no amount of testing can completely eliminate the virus from spreading or provide a free pass to those who get tested. The White House, one of the most tested corners of America, became a super spreader site in recent weeks.
And I think we all know that even the best places that have tested everyone have seen outbreaks.
A cautionary note as many look to COVID testing for some peace of mind.
Testing can be helpful, but you can't rely on testing, because if you're negative one day, you could be positive the next day or the next day. And so you can't rely on that as sort of your card to say it's okay to get together. And I wouldn't risk my family's life, my mother's life on that.
For ABC News Live, I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington.
Some promising signs there are, thanks to Devin for that. And still ahead here on Prime, Hawaii has just reopened to tourists, but like other vacation hotspots, there are restrictions. We'll tell you about them. The new FDA warning for pregnant women about some popular pain medications. And how many American counties do you think are COVID-free? We'll take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day. The endangered lemur who vanished from a San Francisco zoo, who was reportedly spotted by a 5-year-old, now safe and sound.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
You trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Whew. Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this.
It's the time of suspicion.
The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
Hello?
This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff. Lock the door.
We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
Welcome Welcome back, everybody. With coronavirus cases and hospitalizations now surging in most of the country, ABC News has found the very last COVID-free counties in all of America. Perhaps it's not all that surprising that these places are sparsely populated and geographically isolated, like a version of the NBA bubble, if you will. Here's a look by the numbers. Only 4 counties out of America's 3,143 counties have reported no cases of COVID-19. They are Loving County, Texas, population 102, a land of open skies, few people, and oil fields. And Skagway Municipality, Alaska, population 1,601. It's a picturesque port town and cruise ship destination that in pre-pandemic days welcomed about 1 million visitors each summer, but has now emptied out. And then there's Kalawao County, Hawaii, population 75. It's a secluded community on Hawaii's most inaccessible island that used to serve as a leprosy colony. And finally, Esmeralda County, Nevada, with a population of 981 residents spread across 3,600 square miles of mountainous desert, making it rather easy to socially distance. And for those of us who don't live in one of these 4 communities, well, then we have had COVID-19 outbreaks in our own county. And we still have a lot to get to here on Prime. The former Mexican defense minister arrested on drug and money laundering charges. The warning from the World Health Organization about the rise of COVID in Europe. And the remarkable comeback story, the quarterback whose injury could have ended his career or worse, now back on the field. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
COVID-19 was a wake-up call. There are so many more pandemics that could be just around the corner. Viruses literally travel through human populations. What we've got to do is go to those places where the virus begins its journey. Masks on? Yep.
Masks on. Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
This is the exact way in which a new virus could start.
Virus Hunters, special event, Sunday, November 1st at 9 on National Geographic.
On your carts. Get set. Let's go.
Get ready.
The team with the highest cart total could be leaving with $100,000.
To shop.
Bam, bam, bam.
Till you drop.
Mommy down.
Leslie Jones hosts Supermarket Sweep. Premieres Sunday, October 18th on ABC.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
It's being called the most consequential election of a lifetime, the most important vote. And with so much on the line, it demands the most straightforward, newsmaking, real answers, the most informed voices from all sides. The countdown is on to the vote. What will our future look like? ABC's This Week with George. It all plays out right here every Sunday.
The most consequential week yet of this hyper-political year.
Right as you get closer to casting your vote every Sunday on ABC.
President Trump and Joe Biden both back on the campaign trail after a night of dueling town halls.
And I'm honored to be here in Fort Myers.
The president focusing on Florida at an indoor rally with few visible masks, campaigning on health care for seniors, a group polls show Biden is leading among.
Socialist health care plans always end up denying care and coverage to the sick and the elderly in order to control costs.
Mr. Trump railing against the Affordable Care Act, but still not providing a plan to replace it.
What I want to do, get rid of the terrible Obamacare. I've already done it to a large extent because, as you know, the individual mandate is gone. That was the worst part.
You repealed, but you haven't replaced. Now, you've been in office almost 4 years.
We'd like to have new health care, much better and much less expensive.
The Supreme Court, likely with its newest Trump-appointed justice, Amy Coney Barrett, will begin deciding the fate of the Affordable Care Act a week after the November election.
He's still trying to take away your health care.
Former Vice President Joe Biden making that his focal point this afternoon in the Detroit suburbs.
If Trump gets his way, 20 million more Americans will lose their health care.
The former Mexican defense minister was arrested at LAX, accused of taking bribes from a cartel trafficking drugs to the United States. Prosecutors in New York say General Salvador Cienfuegos Cepeda, who served from 2012 to 2018, took steps to protect H2 cartel leaders and their drug operations in Mexico and in several U.S. cities, including LA and New York. Cienfuegos is expected to be transferred from LA to New York to face the charges.
The FDA is warning pregnant women to avoid popular pain medications during the second half of their pregnancy.
The FDA now says pregnant women should avoid painkillers like Advil and Aleve for the last 4 months of their pregnancy. Originally, the warning was for 3 months. Officials say it's because of the drugs and how they can cause a rare but serious complication that can harm the fetus and affect the fetal kidneys. Experts say if the drugs are used, it's important to do so under medical supervision.
We do use this class of medication in obstetrics in the second and third trimester sometimes to treat preterm labor. So it's all about weighing the benefits versus the risk.
The FDA says women who are not sure if their medication contains the drugs should talk to their doctor.
A Texas billionaire has been charged with a massive tax evasion scheme, accused of hiding $2 billion from the IRS. Robert Brockman allegedly hid capital gains income offshore for 20 years. He was released on $1 million bond after pleading not guilty.
The allegation of a $2 billion tax fraud is the largest ever tax charge against an individual in the United States.
Yodeling already polarizing enough, now it's blamed for one of Europe's worst coronavirus outbreaks. In Switzerland, where yodeling sparks joy, 600 fans attended the concert. Masks were not required. The event's organizer says several people from the group were infected with coronavirus. The pandemic now sweeping through that region. In one day, 94% tested came back positive. Researchers say the risk could have been reduced had the singers worn masks among a smaller audience.
It was a gruesome murder, and it played out on a French street. A history teacher who was recently having discussions about images of the Prophet Muhammad was beheaded. Maggie Rulli has more on how police stopped the suspect.
Tonight, a barbaric terror attack in broad daylight in the suburbs of Paris. Police say an 18-year-old man beheaded a middle school history teacher with a knife on the street in front of his school. Officers shooting and killing the attacker after a brief chase. Police say the teacher had received threats after mentioning the controversial cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad, published by the Charlie Hebdo newspaper during a lesson about freedom of expression, images many Muslims find disrespectful. Late today, French President Emmanuel Macron visiting the gruesome scene, calling the killer a coward. Back in 2015, Islamist terrorists attacked Charlie Hebdo's offices in Paris, killing 12 people. Recently, the satirical paper had republished images that led to that original attack. Today's murder is the second terror-related attack in France in less than a month, and since the start of the ongoing trial for the Newsroom massacre. Just weeks ago, 2 people were stabbed in front of Charlie Hebdo's former offices.
And Maggie Rulli joins us now. Maggie, just a horrific attack. And tonight we're hearing from that magazine, Charlie Hebdo. What was their reaction?
Well, they use that same word, Lindsay. Charlie Hebdo called this attack today horrific and revolting. They made the point that this teacher was killed in the line of duty, doing what he loved to do, what his job was. And they made the point also that now, with this attack, intolerance has just crossed a new threshold. And they called on politicians and the people of France to stand up for freedom.
And also the French President Macron, he was emotional tonight in his response to the attack, also visiting the scene. Did he provide any more specifics about the attack?
Well, Lindsay, he was certainly emotional. He was also careful not to provide too many details. He says it is an ongoing investigation. He's not going to release the name of that teacher who was killed until the family has been notified. But he was able to confirm some details for us. He confirmed it was an Islamist terrorist attack. He also confirmed that the teacher had been murdered for teaching his students about freedom of expression. And he also tried to call on the French people, telling them this was a time to unite, to rally around each other, and to have all of France in their prayers. Also, teachers. He made a point to talk to teachers and say he will try to protect them in the future. Lindsay.
Maggie Rulli, thanks so much for your reporting. And while there has been talk of a third surge here in the U.S., in Europe, the WHO is warning that without tougher action, deaths could soar by early next year. France is imposing nighttime curfews in Paris and other cities. People will be fined if they're out after 9 p.m. Belgium is announcing a nationwide curfew, shutting down cafes, bars, and restaurants for an entire month. Europe has been averaging about 100,000 new infections per day for the last week. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and tonight we take a look at some of the unique challenges of screening, preventing, and treating this disease during a global pandemic. And for women with what's known as the BRCA gene mutation, the journey can be especially daunting. ABC's Ariel Reshef has this report.
It's a delicate topic for so many.
I have known since I was 14 that this is a mutation that ran in my family.
Seeking preventative care for heightened cancer risk, a deeply emotional experience.
I had my breast surgeon as well as my gynecological oncologist telling me that as soon as I knew we were done trying to have children, I needed to pull the trigger on a bilateral preventative mastectomy and a total hysterectomy.
But during the COVID-19 pandemic, an added layer of anxiety and logistical complexity. New research finding breast cancer screenings like mammograms were down 63% between March and June. And researchers at Quest Diagnostics finding a dramatic decline in new diagnoses for 6 cancers, with a 52% decrease in new breast cancer patients per week. Dr. Judy Garber, chief of the Division for Cancer Genetics and Prevention at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, says it's an alarming trend.
When COVID is under control, and that day will come, cancer will still be here. And I don't want people to forget and not take care of those risks, especially our high-risk populations, while they're still coping with COVID.
45-year-old Shannon Terrell's mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2011. In 2014, Shannon tested positive for the BRCA2 gene mutation.
On December 23rd, 2014, as I was packing up my office to leave for the Christmas holiday, I got the dreaded phone call from Heidi telling me that indeed my results had come back and I was positive.
Women with the BRCA1 gene mutation have a 72% chance of developing breast cancer by age 80, and BRCA2 carriers have a 69% chance, which means cancer is likely but not certain, leaving these women with a difficult choice. Shannon, a so-called previvor, opted for a preventative double mastectomy to reduce the chance of her developing cancer. She scheduled the procedure after losing both parents and a close friend to illness in 2019.
Those were 3 things that really culminated in me deciding that 2019 and 2020 had to be the years that I went ahead with my surgeries.
But Shannon's surgery was pushed back twice due to the COVID-19 crisis.
Somewhere around the 3rd week of March, once the hospitals started saying no elective surgeries were going to be held and only the surgeries that were deemed necessary were going to be held in the hospitals. I got a phone call from the doctor's office telling me that our surgery had indeed been deemed elective and therefore was being put on hold.
And Shannon is not alone. 28-year-old Andrea Wallens was also worried her procedure could be postponed due to the pandemic.
Even when I had it scheduled, there was still a lot of uncertainty as to whether there would be another surge in the summer.
32-year-old Caitlin Meyer-Krause had to fight to see a doctor in person for her regular checkup after finding a concerning spot.
It took a little bit of convincing the nurse, and finally I was able to advocate for myself and be seen in person.
Despite the challenges, all 3 have taken care of their health, which Dr. Garber says is critical during these trying times.
What is your message to your patients right now?
For my patients who know they have increased risk and who have been working to control that in their lives by their monitoring. I say, we are all working out ways to monitor you safely. Come and have your screening. For patients who really feel that it's time for them to have preventive surgery, which for some of our patients is the right way to handle their risk, that too is happening.
And some genetic testing can even be done at home through telemedicine.
We do it all virtually, just like we're speaking to each other today. And then they get a kit in the mail and they send a saliva sample. So you can investigate these things from the comfort of your office or bedroom.
And for those previvors, there's added urgency to proactively seek treatment.
The thought of not going and maybe having cancer and it progressing scared me more than spending that time and being seen.
With a global pandemic on top of an already difficult journey, many previvors are finding solace in community.
Now that the pandemic has happened, there's a ton of people in the community, both previvors and breast cancer patients and survivors, thrivers, who are all kind of going through this together.
Organizations like Force bringing together those facing hereditary cancers and providing resources to help them navigate an emotionally taxing and arduous process.
Just knowing that you're not alone and there are thousands of other people out there going through the same things, going through screenings, that are thinking about surgeries and the different opportunities of surgeries, and it's really powerful knowing that you're not in this alone.
But with unprecedented challenges comes unprecedented resilience.
So here we have patients who have an inherited risk of cancer that they've been learning to live with. They have to find a way to incorporate that into their lives. And maybe because of that, when COVID comes, it's one more thing. But it's one more thing. And they have been remarkably still reaching out, taking care of each other, taking care of their families. They now think of COVID as well, but people are amazing, and COVID brings that out in us as well.
Ariel Reshef, ABC News, New York.
A reminder of resilience. Our thanks to Ariel for that. And now to tonight's Ballot Watch. With so many Americans planning to vote by mail, we wanted to hear from a state where everyone has voted by mail for years. So our colleagues at GMA3 spoke today with Governor Kate Brown of Oregon, which in 2000 became the nation's first all-vote-by-mail state. Brown discussed how the system works there and responded to the president's unsubstantiated claims that vote by mail will produce fraud.
As we've seen from across the country, evidence of voter fraud is extremely rare. In the 2016 election cycle here in Oregon, we saw 0.0001% of voter fraud. Extremely rare. What the president isn't telling Americans is that he himself votes by mail, so do a number of members of his cabinet. And the wonderful thing about voting by mail in the midst of a global pandemic is that it's safe. People don't have to put their lives or their health at risk while exercising this very fundamental right.
So 0.0001% voter fraud. And Brown also offered this advice to anyone voting by mail for the first time, especially in those states that are new to the system because of the pandemic.
I want to encourage all Americans to vote early. Make sure that you have a plan. And certainly for folks voting by mail from the convenience of your home, sitting at your dining room table in your pajamas, is to do it early. And in Oregon, you have an option of drop boxes or voting through the mail. We've had a great partnership with our friends at the Postal Service, and they work hard to make sure that every ballot that gets in the mail gets delivered to the elections office and gets counted. In Oregon, we believe that your vote is your voice and that every single voice matters.
Thanks to Governor Brown. As the colder months approach, many are thinking about travel and just how practical and safe it might be to take a trip as the pandemic rages on. But the other challenge is, let's say you pick a destination, there could be restrictions just to get there. Hawaii has just removed some of theirs, and 8,000 vacationers touched down as they began to reopen. Kaylee Hartung tells us what we need to know to get away in a time of COVID.
Hawaii sang aloha.
thousands of tourists for the first time in nearly 7 months.
We just couldn't stay closed any longer when people were suffering. We'll watch our numbers. Our hospitalized patients are dropped 70%. I'm a doctor otherwise, but it devastated us. So it's very exciting to see these people come back.
Aloha.
It's aloha for sure.
The lush tropical paradise, known for its pristine beaches and world-class surfing, has suffered the worst economic fallout of any state in the country following the coronavirus. But they're committed to bringing tourism back.
Our occupancy has been zero, functional zero, okay? So we will open up in stages, we'll bring people back in stages, and we don't want to go too fast.
The state now lifting the mandatory 14-day quarantine with one important qualification.
A COVID test or no COVID test?
A negative COVID test must be taken within 72 hours of your flight, with the help of some airlines and a select list of testing partners. Finding an approved test and getting your results in time can be harder than it sounds.
It was the fact that the 72-hour time frame, even though I had an antibody test, they wouldn't accept that. So I was just a little upset about that because I had that already, and they said they had to do the nasal swab, so I had to find somebody in LA to actually perform it.
You actually had to pay for your test?
Yeah, I paid $225 for my test.
But worth that cost?
It was worth it. I got to see how this hotel is going to be first.
You're on one of the first flights coming to Hawaii without quarantine. You clearly had this date circled on the calendar.
I did.
The state will only accept test results from a limited list of trusted testing and travel partners. I made an appointment at this CVS in Los Angeles with no guarantee I'd get my results before takeoff. Thankfully, they came mid-flight. Some airlines like Hawaiian and United streamlining the process for their customers in select West Coast cities, offering tests at the airport just before takeoff.
It's critically important for the economy of our state that we restart tourism, which is really the economic engine of our state. And we've got to do it safely in a way that keeps our community safe, that keeps our guests and our industry's workers safe. And so we're working incredibly hard along with all of our colleagues at the state and in the visitor industry to make sure that we're not just reopening, we're reopening safely for everyone.
Passengers need to create an online profile, including a health questionnaire. Upon arrival on the island, it's validated.
This process is working really efficiently, and one of the reasons why officials tell us more people are showing up with their pre-test completed than not. They followed instructions and uploaded their information.
It's touching. It brings hope for our people. These individuals supporting Hawaii will make that difference. We'll be able to get back on track.
These iconic beaches have been deserted, many storefronts shuttered, some hotels shut down completely.
And it's not just hotels, it's activities, it's restaurants, it's retail. I mean, we have built an empire of great hospitality here in Hawaii, and it's been very hard to see that wither.
But now government officials and local businesses are hoping this program will bring the islands back to life.
We are going to grow the beauty back here and be able to share again with the world what makes Hawaii so special. We're excited to be open and excited to say aloha again to the world.
Lindsay, seeing this famous stretch of Waikiki Beach basically empty, locals tell me that is typically unheard of. Some of the hotels behind me, they're still closed. Some of the storefronts along this main drag, they just reopened yesterday. Hawaii is taking the first step on a long road to economic recovery for the state, but the doors, they are open. It took us some patience and some planning to get here, but we have been welcomed with the warmest smiles behind the masks. Lindsay.
Kaylee, what a lucky duck getting that assignment. Our thanks to her for that. And when we come back, one remarkable journey, a player getting back on the field after an injury that could have killed him.
John Lennon, his life, his legacy, his last days.
While there's life, there's hope.
New interviews and his last interview. The new 2020 event tonight on ABC. Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app.
On your carts. Get set. Let's go.
Get ready.
The team with the highest card total could be leaving with $100,000.
To shop.
Bam, bam, bam.
Till you drop.
Oh, mommy down.
Leslie Jones hosts Supermarket Sweep. Premieres Sunday, October 18th on ABC.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart they did this.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Right now, at this defining moment in America, from ABC News, Turning Point, the groundbreaking special Nightline series. Late night on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Welcome back. Tonight, the impact of COVID on football is growing. The New England Patriots practice today was canceled after a player tested positive, but the team is still expected to play on Sunday. And in college football, 6 games this weekend have been postponed or canceled. 32 games have been affected so far this season. And after testing positive earlier this week, Alabama head coach Nick Saban hopes to be back on the sidelines tomorrow night. Saban needs 3 straight days of negative tests to return. The university says he tested negative on Thursday. Finally tonight, the incredible NFL comeback story for Washington's Alex Smith. He's returning to the field for the first time since suffering a severe leg injury that not only could have ended his career, but also his life. Will Reeves sat down with the quarterback to hear his remarkable tale on perseverance and human triumph.
Here comes pressure. Kareem gets him down with J.J. Watt. A deep sack on Smith.
On November 18th, 2018, Alex Smith was sacked for the 410th time in his NFL career.
And I tell you what, Smith is hurt badly.
Certainly felt something strange down in my lower leg at that point, and obviously to look down and see what had happened, and I knew right away that I had broken my leg.
Smith's right leg was shattered. Spiral and compound fractures to his tibia and fibia, sending him straight to surgery. Then things got worse.
Getting ready to go home, and the last thing I really remember there was obviously my temperature spiking before I went home, and looking down at my leg once it was unwrapped and realizing obviously that something was wrong.
A bacterial infection eating at his leg, his body entering septic shock. Smith's doctors were gravely concerned not only about his career, but his life.
How did that affect you psychologically?
I had a lot of time to myself to sit and wonder if I'd ever be able to do those things that I took for granted for so long. If I'd ever be able to go on a walk with my wife, go on a hike, play with my kids, just everyday thing.
Was that perhaps the darkest place that you had been?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, without a doubt in my life, that's certainly the hardest thing I've ever been faced with. It was going to be a long process to come back.
Ready to get after it?
Yep.
All right, let's come on up.
Smith's journey back began in San Antonio at the Center for the Intrepid.
First throw since November 18th.
A military hospital specializing in limb recovery.
I don't know if I'd be here without their involvement in this process, not only from the expertise and the science and care, but also from the motivation for me to be able to go down there. And that was really the first time that I ever thought about attempting to try and play football again.
17 surgeries and a year of rehab later, Smith was cleared to play again. This video showing Alex and his family celebrating the news.
There were so many ups and downs and complications along the way to finally get the green light from all the doctors in agreement that my leg was good to go. Yeah, it was very cool.
Grinding through self-doubt and the rigors of an NFL training camp, Smith earned a spot on the team as a backup, an improbable triumph itself. Then last Sunday, his number was called.
Is back out here to play quarterback in the National Football League.
A small moment there where I here it goes, this is it. I was ready. I was so thankful. We hadn't had any fans in our first couple home games, and we had just progressed to just family. And so I knew going, obviously, that they were going to be there. And for me, that's all that mattered.
What a comeback. Our thanks to Will for that story. And before we go tonight, our image of the day, this one is a real treat. Take a look. Joseph and Eve, husband and wife, married for 60 years. There you see Eve right there. Joseph's coming up. The two are residents at a Florida assisted living facility, but were apart for 215 days due to the pandemic. And what you are looking at is them reuniting. Nice little tender hug there. Little I love you back and forth as a few tears are shed. Marriage apparently still strong as ever. That is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great weekend.